What's happening, fight fans? Welcome to episode five. Yeah, episode five of the MMA Mindset Podcast. Back with another regional roundup. I'm so excited. Didn't get to do one last week, and this is kind of the premise that this channel is going to be built on, and this podcast is going to be built on. So really excited to get this one back for you. Just if you'd like to just go check out yesterday's video, had a Fighter Origins with Charles Joyner. What an interview as well. Great guy, fantastic fighter, going to cause a lot of noise. I mean, 6'8" in the middleweight division's ridiculous. So yeah, go check out that episode. On Wednesday, I've got Fighter Origins coming out again. This time with James Dixon, and he had a lot to say about a lot of people. And he gave some really good insight into the gym and his life and Melissa getting to the UFC. So yeah, look out for that one. That'll be out on Monday. So without further ado, we're going to be going through the FCC 34 card that was last night, and I am joined by the person who we started this brand, the MMA Mindset, together years and years ago in lockdown when we started writing news articles for a website, and kind of went up and down, and then I've kind of brought it back, and Cal's been doing his own thing in the footballing world, doing his freelance journalism and stuff like that, and loads of other websites. He started his own podcast, the Cinematch podcast, which episode came out today, which I am on. We did the Dark Knight versus the Winter Soldier. Great episode, loads of fun to do. But without further ado, thank you very much for joining me today, Cal.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. I'm excited. I just wanted to say, obviously, I've watched every episode so far, and I'm quite impressed, with how great your interviews are going as well. Obviously, you've got your experience from, your regional shows that you go to where you're interviewing them, but I think you've obviously done two of the Fighter Origins episodes so far, and they've been really good. I've enjoyed both, so you're doing a good job. And I think even just seeing you do this is what was the inspiration behind me finally taking that leap and starting the Cinematch podcast. So yeah, thanks for having me on, and thanks for being on my podcast earlier this week. But I'm looking forward to today. I checked out the card. It's the first time I've ever watched an FCC card, and it was an absolute banger. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk about the fights with you.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I was going to mention that it's like the first kind of like regional scene card that you've kind of looked at in depth, and I think it's just I was so glad it was such an amazing card, because I was like, it needed to be an amazing card for this experience for yourself, and it delivered top to bottom. I think there was about four decisions in what was 16 card fight. So
yeah, and about 7 first round finishes.
yeah, exactly, and it was rear naked choke city as well. So yeah, it was a fantastic card. A lot of finishes, but a lot of great fights as well that did go the distance, especially in some of the title fights. So yeah, looking forward to getting in. Obviously, end of this we'll do the awards, post all them out on graphics, and yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it with what was an early contender for fight of the night, the first fight on the pro card, which was Yannick Anuka versus Sean Fraser. Sean Fraser is a guy who was managed by John, who was on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, HD Talent Management. And this was a great fight, back and forward. It looked like Sean was probably going to end up losing a unanimous decision, but then it looked like Yannick got quite tired in that third round, and he landed that knee and got the TKO finish, and just a show of heart and grit and determination, which is really inspiring. But that was a fantastic way to open the card.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it there. It did look like Sean was losing, because I think up until he lost, I think Yannick looked really, really good. And I think he demonstrated some really good all-around game in the first couple of rounds. But like you said, I think he did tire out. And Sean just showed, unbelievable heart to just grit through it, get over that adversity. And then, the ground and pound to finish it was just ruthless. But yeah, to start the card off with someone looking down and out, but just bouncing back and showing that heart just to overcome all the obstacles, it was a great way to get it started. And it shows that even on the regional scene, these guys are just as tough as you can get.
Yeah, it kind of set a precedent for the rest of the card, I think. And obviously going on to the regional scene, even the amateur cards, these guys aren't getting the big bucks that the people in all these other organizations are, but they give just as much effort and they give just as much heart because of how much it means to them to to make a name for themselves in this sport, and that was a hell of a way to do it by Sean Fraser. And I think he'll take a lot of confidence from this victory, and knowing that if it does go later on, and even if it looks like he might be down and out, he's going to be able to pull it out the fire and get the finish. But no, like I said, and I think this was quite an early shout for fight of the night from myself.
Yeah, it was one of the ones that I was debating. There were a few tough ones to go through, and that was one of them that was in with a shout of fight of the night. I think as the night progressed, there were a couple that pulled away, especially later on. No spoilers, but yeah, it was a really entertaining fight. And like I said, with it being the first time I'd ever seen FCC, it was a great like introduction to the card and a great introduction to the promotion, just to show me like the sort of stuff I could expect going forward and the sort of like entertaining wars that we can get. So yeah, it was a great way to kick it off.
Yeah, fantastic way. Moving on to the next fight, we had Emil Vujakovic versus David Connolly. Emil's been through some shit recently. He had a cancerous tumor removed from his neck. He also had surgery on a ACL and MCL. Really in the shit. And to come back from all that and make your pro debut and look that good after so long out, and he's an absolute machine, massive guy. There was such a difference in physique, and David did well in the opening couple of minutes by putting him up against the cage. He even got a couple of takedowns. Emil bounced straight back up, but precedent to David for being able to kind of get him to the floor and try and implement his game plan. But I think the strength and the physicality just kind of overwhelmed David a little bit. And once Emil smelt blood, he got the first round TKO and finished him nastily.
Yeah, you mentioned it there, the strength, and what an imposing figure is. My first takeaway, like the guy, you wouldn't want to come across him in an alley, put it that way. Like he is an intimidating looking guy, and like you said, it's such a feel good factor when you take into account like his struggles with health and stuff like that away from fighting. So it was really nice to see him get in there. And what was most impressive to me was obviously he got the first round finish, but that was the first time David Connolly had been KO'd. He alluded to it before the fight and moments leading up to the finish. He'd never been KO'd before, and to do it in his pro debut was quite an exciting thing for him. And like you said, with the cancer and stuff, there's no better way to get started as a pro than to finish someone who had never been finished before. What a statement that was.
Yeah, and the one thing I love about FCC is, and basically all of the regional promotions in the UK, bar a few, is Emil's a big figure on the amateur scene. He had a lot of hype behind him. Everyone was really excited to see his pro debut. And they didn't give him a can. They didn't give him someone who was like a journeyman. Like you see these guys like Alex Cairns and stuff who were like 0 and 50, and you see them on some promotions and it's ridiculous, but they give him a real tough fight, and to pass that with flying colors, he should be really proud of himself. And I watched his post fight interview, not the one in the cage, the one after, and he was just super grateful for the opportunity to be able to make his pro debut on UFC Fight Pass. Like that's a big thing for these guys, and a massive thing for the regional scene is to have these guys display their talents on a platform as big as UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah, I think like you said there, like it might not seem like a big deal to many, but even just having that platform to be promoted in that way on Fight Pass and to hear stories like his, it'll introduce them to like an entire new set of fans that had previously never checked them out. Like I said, I'd never had a chance to watch FCC or anything like that before. So just putting in performances like that, when you pair that with the backstory and everything like that, and just the figure he cuts around, like when he gets in the cage, and the sort of like aura he has, just as being one of the scariest looking guys I've seen, it's quite a good idea. And I think, like you said, having it on Fight Pass, it's only going to help him going forward, like building that image and gaining that fan base.
Yeah, exactly. And Emil's someone that I'd love to have on the podcast because I think he's got a super interesting story. He'd have a lot to talk about. So I'd absolutely love to have him on the podcast. And it's probably something that I'm going to reach out for in the future. So yeah, well done to Emil. And like I said, well done to David for showing a lot of heart and determination in those opening few minutes. Moving on to the fight one of the fight I was most excited for was Alexis Sarmatidis. Snamatidis. It's a hard name to say that. And then the Pink Panther, Curtis Campbell. This guy, Curtis Campbell, had the most incredible amateur career, and he had so much hype coming into his pro fights, past his pro debut with flying colours. He's a finishing machine. He's so confident and he's so quirky, and he's got a load of charisma, but not charisma in, like you'll see in the episode on Wednesday when I spoke to James. I think a lot of people get charisma mixed up with acting like a knobhead. There's not really, they're not, the two aren't synonymous with each other. You can have charisma and not be a dick, and that's kind of what Curtis is like. And it was as close to a 10-7 first round that I've seen. Like, that was
can I just say there, actually, in my notes, the first thing I put was 10-7 question mark, question mark, question mark.
Yeah,
so, yeah, I completely agree with that.
That was insane. And I'm props to Alexis for surviving on the floor, because he was getting lit up with elbows and punches, and he was just getting beat up, and to keep moving. I was super impressed with Alexis, and it just shows how tough he is. But there's one thing that you can't condition, and that's your liver. So when you get a big front kick to your liver like that, it doesn't matter how tough you are, your body will just shut down. And Curtis once again gets the finish and puts on display why he's such a exciting prospect.
Yeah, that liver kick, it was like I could feel it myself watching. Like, there's nothing that looks quite as painful to me than when you get land that flush, it really, really is effective. And like I said, I think a lot of people think charisma is Conor McGregor, and that's the only way of being charismatic, and it's not. And I think he just exuded that confidence and that charisma when he came out. There's almost like an aura about him, like and a star power. And he's got like the gimmick with the Pink Panther and the pink gear and stuff. And it's like ready-made to be built around. Like, I can imagine in the future he will be pushed to the moon, and you'll see him, a promotion really get behind him, because he's a star and you can see him heading to the top. Like, for that to be his second pro fight and just to dominate the way he did, it was so impressive. And obviously Liverpool have obviously had the luck with a few decent MMA talents lately. Obviously Darren Till first in the UFC, and then Paddy Pimblett, and they've got this reputation for having like these larger than life characters. And I think Curtis Campbell is primed to be the next big one. And he might be getting a bit ahead of myself, but he looks like the most talented already I've seen come out of Liverpool like that. Obviously, I'm not taking into account Tom Aspinall at heavyweight, but when you look at the younger, the smaller guys like Paddy and things like that, I think Curtis Campbell is undoubtedly going to be up there as one of the best we've seen.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent coming out of Liverpool at the moment. Like in Cage Warriors, Luke Riley, who put on a fight of the night performance a few months back. That was incredible. There's so many guys coming out of Liverpool. It's just been a plethora of talent coming out of that place. It's a real epicenter of not just the great fighters, but charisma as well. Like these Liverpoolian guys have got so much charisma, and the crowds feed off that, and fans feed off that. So if Curtis could carry on putting on these displays, then yeah, we could be seeing something really, really big for UK martial arts.
Yeah, it just feels like with the UFC, they love the larger than life characters. And like I said, the guy's already got a gimmick. He's the Pink Panther, like the whole pink gear and stuff. It's marketable, and it just feels like he is destined to be pushed to the top in that sense. And if he keeps putting in performances like this, then it'll only come soon, I imagine.
Yeah, I'm hoping I'm going to get to one of his fights live soon, because I just want to kind of feel that raw energy and the atmosphere around it. So yeah, well done, Curtis. But like I said, well done on Alexis for that first round. You tough motherfucker.
Yeah, that is one of the toughest displays I've seen from a guy that never looked in the fight. Like, just to hold out like that, it's impressive. I mean, there's not many that could survive that sort of onslaught. So yeah, fair play to him for that.
Yeah,
I also want to say on a side note, I'm glad that you keep introducing the fights, so that some of these names I have absolutely no idea how to pronounce, you have to bite the bullet and say them first, and I can just go off what you did.
I just go off it, mate. I just try, and then what are they gonna say?
God loves a trier. God loves a trier.
Exactly, mate. Moving on to probably one of the craziest things that I've ever seen, which was the Danny Dixon versus Harry Davies fight. This was insane. Like, this had me jumping around my living room pretty much. I was like, Harry coming in 8-fight losing streak is something that's pretty incredible to keep going after that is something that's I say commendable, but obviously sometimes it could be a bit concerning as to who's advising him behind the scenes. And to take a fight against a guy like Danny Dixon, who's on a 5-fight win streak with all 5 first round finishes, it spelled disaster for Harry. And Danny came out the gate flying, and I thought to myself, "Well, there we go. Here's how this is going to go. Soon Harry's going to wilt." And he was just like, "Nah, I'm not going down." And I think it kind of got in Danny's head, and Harry come back and finished him late in the first.
Yeah, I think as we alluded to a minute ago, like you get these instances where these guys are on these large losing streaks and they get put against these up and comers, and it essentially feels like they're just being fed to them. It feels like the promotion is using someone like that to build another guy up, and that's what I had the sense was happening last night before the fight, and that's the sense I had in the early stages because Danny Dixon looked fantastic, like striking, kicks, everything. It was all incredible, and I think he was. What was his downfall was I think Harry Davis started to get into his head and he started to play mind games and taunt him. And I think it kind of caused Danny's game plan to become a bit unglued. He wasn't as composed, and he bought into it and he started trying to just stand and bang because he wanted to prove to himself. There was even instances where he tried to taunt himself, and I think he played into Harry's like strategy perfectly because I think if he just kept his composure and he'd continued to be smart, patient with what he was doing, like he was with his striking early, he'd have probably won a comfortable, at least decision. But he tried to engage with Harry in a stand and bang, and he gassed after that, and he gassed really quick, and then Harry just lit him up, and it was an incredible win. Like you said, to be losing 8 fights in a row and to still have that belief in yourself to come in and face someone as dangerous as Danny Dixon, it takes a lot of balls, and to see him do it and come out on top, it was a really great moment, and I was really happy for him. And it was one of my favorite fights of the night, and I went crazy watching it all. My girlfriend was sat on the so I had the headphones in watching on the laptop, and my girlfriend was watching some TV, and she was like, she kept giving me scowls because I was like shouting whilst watching it.
No, it was fantastic, and I don't know whether it was maybe a scenario that Danny Dixon was believing that this was going to be easy, but when you're coming in there, someone who's had 13 pro fights, it's never going to be easy because that guy's got ring time, and I just think I've never seen someone. It looked like his gas tank just went boom after about 2.5 minutes, and that's incredible to kind of. And I think it wasn't so much maybe that he had bad cardio, but it was the adrenaline dump, being knowing that you're not getting this guy out there in that easily, and it's the adrenaline dump of being like, shit, this might be a bit difficult, and then Harry's going to feed off that, and it looked like he just froze as soon as Harry started throwing the hooks back. He just froze, and that was all she wrote. And like I said, that'll be something I think that the fans of the promotion will remember for a long time.
Yeah, like I think going in, Danny had 5 straight first round finishes, so I think he was used to just getting people out early. So when he was throwing everything he could at Harry, and Harry did like essentially laughed in his face. I don't think he knew what to do, and it really played into Harry's favor. So it was incredible to watch, and it was crazy. I didn't expect it at all. Like if you'd have said beforehand that it would be a first round finish, I think I'd have bet everything I own on Danny Dixon being the one to get it. But it just shows you what MMA is like, and anything can happen, and anything can happen on any given night. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how good you are. Anyone that's, like you said, fought that many times is always in with a shout. So it was entertaining to watch, and I was really happy for Harry.
Yeah, I was absolutely buzzing for him. So yeah, look forward to seeing him because he said he's going to start training again. We're training properly now, so who knows what could happen. So yeah, well done to Harry, and hopefully Daddy comes back and puts that behind him and uses it as a learning experience. Moving on to the co-main of the pro card, which was Tom Mullen versus Harold Cohen. And these Israelis, man. These Israelis are mental. There's Moshe Araladi that I saw at Golden Ticket, who's going to be fighting for the Golden Ticket bantamweight title in September. He unbelievable, and Harold's no different. There's a reason he was undefeated. There was a reason that he was 5-0 undefeated, and against a guy called guy Tom Mullen, who's super talented in his own right. Had a lot of eyes on him coming up through the sport on a 4-fight winning streak, and it was a really close back and forward fight. But Harold did enough and showed great strength and great grappling to be able to kind of control the position and control where the fight took place, especially in that third and final round.
Yeah, like you said there, his grappling was really what set it apart, and I think that's what did him enough to win the fight. There was a moment though where Mullen had the guillotine locked in, and it looked really, really tight, and I thought it could have been the other way around. I thought it looked like he could have put him out, but I think he showed great resilience just to hold off and escape that and then just take over with the grappling. But yeah, like you said, it was a really high quality fight and it was entertaining. And I think you see that as we got towards the main events on both cards, the fights seemed a lot closer and a lot more strategic. And I think that played into how the co-main and the main events played out on the amateurs and the pros. But yeah, it was a really good performance, and I'm excited to see more from him.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, Tom was fantastic as well. But he's just come up against someone there who was super motivated, super experienced, kept to his game plan, knew what he was going to do when he came in there and executed it perfectly. Unanimous decision, which I think was right. I can't remember if it was 30-27 or 29-28, but it was either way, it was a fantastic performance by Harrell, and looking forward to kind of seeing how he's going to progress, what he's going to do in the sport, and if he's going to. I don't know if he's living in the UK now. I think he might still be in Israel. So yeah, looking forward to kind of what he does over there. We've got loads of guys coming over, which is really exciting for the regional scene, because whilst you obviously want to develop your own talent, the UK talent, getting these guys who actually want to come over and compete on these cards in the UK is super exciting and just makes for some really, really fun and exciting matchups.
Yeah, I think like you said there, and obviously the main event we'll see someone else who made the UK debut. It is entertaining, and that's something I wasn't entirely sure about. Like without checking out like your regional promotions in the UK, a large assumption would be that it's just UK based fighters facing off. So seeing the international fighters come in and do what they do was quite a nice surprise. But yeah, it was a great fight, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from both guys.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to the main event, Rafael Ochugbu is chasing double champ status in this one against a really, really tough competitor in Mateus Linares, who was obviously making his UK debut. And this was not plain sailing for Rafael, like everyone thought it was going to be. Everyone thought he was going to come in here and piss it, but he did get the submission in the third round. But leading up to that, there were some moments where Mateus was looking really dangerous, but Rafael's ceiling is so high to get the champ status. That man's going to be in the UFC in the next year or two, I think.
Yeah, I think the fact that he didn't tap in that armbar, the armbar that he was in was absolutely mental. And like you could see the grimace of pain on his face, and like to just hold out and refuse to give up. It shows a lot of character and like a real heart. So yeah, it was nice to see him get the double champ status, like you said, with the submission in the third round. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go forward, like make it to the UFC, because he was really good. But like I said earlier, like is it Linhares? Is that
Yeah, Linares, yeah.
yeah, that it was his UK debut, so that's alluding back to these international fighters coming across and making a name. And I think he looked good for the most part, better than I expected. He just came short at the end against someone that's really, really talented. But it's nothing to be ashamed of. Like I said, he got that armbar locked on, and any normal fighter probably would have tapped out. But this guy has got some serious heart, so.
Yeah, he looked fantastic, but Achegbu's just a different level. He's going to be one of these guys that you look back on in 5 years' time, and he could be anywhere in the sport. He's super talented on the ground, super talented striker, great cardio, fantastic belief and mindset, which I think is really important. And to not let the kind of the occasion get on top of him is something that's speaks a lot of levels to someone's mindset. So super excited to see where he goes from here. Like I said, he's going to be, I think he's 8-1 now, 9-1. He's going to be on a lot of the radars for Dana White's Contender Series, or even just getting signed maybe to a short notice fight in the UFC. And he did perfectly to defend that armbar. He did exactly what he needed to do. He rotated with the armbar, stepped over the body, so he was able to create an angle and take the pressure off the arm. And it was, like I said, mindset to keep calm in those sort of situations where a lot of people would panic and maybe use that punch defense. This guy's level and limit is you can't even put words in on it really.
I think that's what separates the good MMA fighters from the great ones. He has that level of composure to know how to react in dangerous situations that maybe some fighters wouldn't. Some might panic, try to wriggle out in certain ways and end up getting caught. Whereas he knew what to do. He kept calm. He was composed, and it played to his benefit. And I think that's the sort of thing that you need if you are going to make it to the top. So it bodes well for him going forward, I think.
Yeah, definitely, and that, like I said, that was the end of the end of the pro card, and then so that was fantastic to open the night on the pro card, and then have the amateurs, which we're going to talk about now. After the only thing that's different really is the size of the gloves and the rule set, but the skills on display, not a million miles apart, and these amateurs that are coming through now, they train like pros. They train 5-6 days a week, twice a day. They're so disciplined. It's not like the sport was 10-15 years ago where you could rock up at a gym, train for a week, get a fight, train twice a week. It's just not gonna work out for you anymore. And to open the amateur card was Mateus Urquhart versus Brooklyn Thomas. Brooklyn Thomas was the guy who, up until his last fight against Adam Butterworth at Almighty Fighting Championships 28 that I was at, was super touted and really had a lot of eyes on him and a lot of expectation. Unfortunately, he fell short against Adam, but Adam's a beast. Like that's no discredit to himself. It's just one of those things when you get into the point where he is in his amateur career, where he was 5-0 undefeated. You're going to come up against these guys that are tough, and it's kind of where you learn something about yourself. And Mateus just looked so much stronger than him and so much more composed than him, and got the unanimous decision, and not made it look easy as such, but looked really comfortable in there.
Yeah, I think there's an experience factor on it, and obviously Thomas is still young. This is all a learning curve, especially like I said on the amateurs. In the large scheme of things, these sorts of losses at the beginning will help build you, and they won't knock you back too much. So while he's dropped 2 fights in a row now, I think it's going to help him more in the long term. I think Urquhart again, did look like the much stronger fighter, and while it was for a relatively easy win, I think it was much closer than he anticipated. I think because of the age difference, I think he thought he'd steamroll over him. And I think on the flip side, Thomas thought he'd done enough. I didn't. I didn't. I know the commentators seem to think Thomas had done enough as well, but I was firmly in the belief that Urquhart had won. So I wasn't too surprised. Like I said, though, I think just that experience, and you've seen it on the Dana White Contender Series now with the prospects versus the veterans. And I just think in MMA especially, that experience can be huge. And I think that's what we saw here. Like just having that experience on your side and just having that little bit more time in the ring and stuff, I think it helps massively. So I think it's no surprise to see the way this one played out. But I think, like I said, losing like this will only help Thomas's experience himself, and he will benefit from this going forward.
Yeah, I know, like you said, the commentators and things, Brooklyn thought that he'd done enough, and I know it's quite maybe difficult to judge fights whilst you're actually there. But looking at home, I thought Mateus really looked comfortable and did enough, and it was a unanimous decision. So you can say that with whatever that is, but no, it was fantastic display by Mateus. But like I said, Brooklyn will be fine. He'll be back. He's a young kid. He's got loads of room and loads of potential to carry on in the sport. So like I say, he just needs to kind of dust off his gloves, put it. And this is kind of where you can you get your losses. It's fine. It's amateur. It's all about experience. And this is where you want to kind of build your records and not really worry about having a few losses, because all the cage time that you can get against all different types of opponents is going to benefit you in the long run.
Yeah, exactly. I think I can't remember word for word the way the phrase goes, but people say you learn more in a defeat than a win. So I think this sort of experience will only help. And going forward, as he spends more and more time in the ring fighting, as he gets older, he will learn more. And I think eventually we'll probably see on the flip side where he will have the experience that helps him get over younger fighters. So it's just a part of the game, I think. So it's not going to be an issue for him, and he'll be fine as long as he bounces back from it.
No, exactly. So yeah, moving on to the next fight, Sonny O'Neill versus Fayed Abdallah. This was a head kick that was heard from miles around. It was disgusting, and it was fantastic technique, amazing timing, accuracy, and Sonny looked great and finished a fantastic first round with a head kick that was would have belonged on many of a highlight reel.
Yeah, and as soon as he came out to Scouting for Girls, I knew this guy meant serious business. Like, Heartbeat is an absolute anthem, so fair play to that. And even early on, the fight didn't last very long, but even in the early stages, Sonny showed his effective kicks. Like, he landed quite a few leg kicks and things like that early, and then obviously things went wild, and he got dropped, and then he landed a takedown. And it could have gone very, very differently. But to get up and just land that head kick, it was incredible recovery, and it was an incredible way to bounce back, because that when he got dropped, it looked rough. And I honestly thought if it was going to end a minute later, it would have gone the other way. But yeah, that head kick was incredible, and it's a shame for Fayed, because I think that's 0-3 now, and he was in a great position to pick up the victory there after dropping Sonny. But like I said, just unbelievable recovery to weather that storm, be smart enough to land the takedown, and then just to recover, get up, and just land a head kick that brutal. It was incredible. It was an incredible way to win the fight. When you look like you've done like that, just to come back and somehow emerge victorious with one of the best head kicks I've seen in quite a while. It was really good. And like I said, coming out to Scouting for Girls, I knew the guy meant business.
Yeah, I think what kind of helped Sonny in when he got dropped is he was moving backwards as he got dropped, not like moving forwards. So he kind of caught on the end, so it didn't really hit him with his momentum going forward. So I think that kind of worked into his favor, because I think if he'd have been going the other way, that might have shut him out. And to be able to shut people out with these 8-ounce gloves on in the amateurs is something that's really impressive, because there's quite a lot of padding there. So Fayed must have some power in those hands, and it's really unlucky for him. But you can't really do much against a perfectly landed head kick like this. So yeah, Sonny O'Neill's gonna be able to add that to his highlight reel, and he's going to gain some fans, I think.
He's already gained one from me just for his music choice.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Moving on to the next fight, I want to talk about the fight first before I go into any other details and stuff like that, because I feel like it's just part of respect to be able to speak about this fight before I go into any further discussion about maybe what happened after, or what shouldn't have happened, or what needs to happen in the future. But it was Kanya Kamaran versus Aaron Haki. And Kanya looked great, and it was a fantastic submission. Latched onto him, standing rear naked choke. As soon as he got there, he wasn't giving up, and he looked fantastic, and came into the cage with a lot of confidence and a lot of energy, and obviously did what he needed to do, and looked flawless doing it. Sometimes there's a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth, especially after this particular fight. And his coaches, George and Harry, will not be. I don't think they'll be happy with this behind the scenes. Paul Crosley's a super experienced referee, and he doesn't take no shit. And I've always experienced him when I've been around him, and he doesn't take no shit. And what he says goes. And he was upset after this. There was no need to keep that choke on. You're an amateur. There's no bad blood. It hasn't been going on for weeks. There's no need to keep that choke on, and there's no need to push him to the floor after you've finished. I understand adrenaline sometimes gets the better of you, but this is why you're training as a fighter, to be able to control yourself in those situations. You know you'd got the win, and there was no need. You've done nothing for yourself there by acting like that after. Well done on the victory, and like I said, it was a fantastic performance, but maybe take this time to reflect on kind of how you act and how you deal with that adrenaline after the fight, and maybe reflect on yourself a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's a shame because it did take away from a really great performance. Like, his grappling from the get-go was just relentless, and he was just on top from the minute go. But to just it's understandable sometimes you have them in the submission, and your adrenaline, you don't let go immediately because you don't really know what's going on. You're not aware that they've tapped or anything like that. But it wasn't just that it held on, it was letting go and then pushing him. Like it's so dangerous and it's not a good look for him. And it like I said, it ruined what was a really good performance for me. And I'd have come out of that any other time as a fan for the performance, but that at the end it turned me off a little bit and it left it on a sour note. So it was a shame to see it go that way after such a great one-sided performance from him.
Yeah, exactly. And he's a guy that trains out in Middlesbrough, up near our neck of the woods, and I really wanted to get behind him, and I was super impressed with how talented he was. And like I said, just and it's not something that's unforgivable, and it's not something that you can't come back from. But I think he kind of maybe needs to come out and say something and just say, "Look, I'm sorry. I let my emotions get the better of me after the win." So yeah, well done to him. But hopefully, he takes a little bit of time to reflect and hopefully we don't see a situation like that happening again. So on from one round from one rear naked choke to another. I don't know if I've got all these in order, by the way, but here we go. Christian Soda versus Jordan Allen. Jordan's a super tough guy from just down the road from me. Really, really talented guy with a lot of amateur experience, and I was kind of expecting Jordan to get the win here, and Christian Soda just looked fantastic, especially in that second round. And as soon as he got that squeeze and got the back against the cage, he was not letting up until he had the tap or he'd put Jordan to sleep.
Yeah, it was one of those where I think Christian Soda just looked like better at the grappling all the way through. But there was that brief moment where Jordan Allen did somehow get into the choke, and it looked like he was going to, like, when he had a great position on the back. And it's just one of those things. It's like it shows how quickly MMA can change. Like you're in that position, and then somehow only moments later you can be on the opposite side, and Soda quickly switched things around and had him in a choke himself to get the win. So it was interesting because, like I said, Soda was obviously the known for being the better grappler, especially after how the fight was playing out beforehand. But just to see Allen get into that position and almost pull it out, it's indicative to what MMA is about, and like anyone can do anything. But on the flip side, things can change quickly, as I said, and Soda just holding off, switching things back around and getting that submission. It was quite impressive from him, and I was really impressed from what I saw. And I know you're obviously a Jordan Allen guy, so it's a shame to see what happened there, but I think Soda was really impressive.
Yeah, definitely. He looked great, and like I said, Jordan will be back, and he'll be fine. And I think he's got a bright future ahead of him in the sport, and he's got lots of experience as an amateur that he'll take into the pro ranks when he finally decides to make that jump. So yeah, well done to Soda, great performance. Moving on to a great fight that I had won again as soon as I saw the walkout and as soon as I saw the records. Josh Dean versus Kyle Leach, 1-5 coming into that fight. Josh Dean, I don't know where you get to where you decide, yeah, maybe I'm not gonna pursue this, but he looked fantastic. And that triangle choke was so slick. And I don't know whether he hurt his leg during the choke or before the choke, but to be able to get that squeeze and get that squeeze and that finish with a compromised leg speaks levels to that guy's toughness.
Yeah, when you come in at 1-5 and then you pair that with the apparent injury suffered to get that choke, it to put it all together, it's so impressive. And I was really impressed by what I saw there. It's like you said, it's difficult at 1-5, similar to what we said about Harry Davis earlier. Like to have that belief in yourself, to continue to make that walk despite things really not going well for you so far. It shows a lot of heart and it shows a lot of self-confidence, which I think fighters need. And that to get the submission fighting through an injury like that, and it's not just any injury, it's an injury to a body part that you need in that moment. So it showed an unbelievable level of toughness from him, and it really impressed me. So I was a big fan of that, and I was really happy for Josh Dean because, like you said, at 1-5, you need a big performance because you dropped to 1-6, and it's hard to see where the next good performance is coming from. But I know it's still only 2-5, but just that win might be huge for him going forward, and it might change things, and it might be the spark that really sets his career on the right path.
Yeah, it was fantastic performance, and looking kind of forward to seeing where he goes from this, because I think at 1-5 you might struggle to get opponents because it's a quite high risk, low reward, because it's like, oh well, I can fight this guy and I can beat him, and people look at my record and think, yeah, well, he's like 1-6 now. but now he's getting to that 2-5, and he had a great performance in his last fight. I think maybe he might be able to get another fight. And if he gets to the win in his next one, that's 3-5. 3-5 is it's not too bad at this level, especially with the amount of tough guys in the amateur scene. So yeah, well done, Josh, and hopefully we can keep seeing that record improve. On to the next fight, which is one of the best nicknames I've ever seen in the sport, the Indian Chuck Norris. I mean, when you've got a nickname like that, you kind of have to come out and deliver. And that's what he did. Came out straight away, boom, first round, rear naked choke, got the finish over Jack Cragg, who's a tough dude. And he lived up to his name, and it looked fantastic doing it.
Yeah, I said it to you. I texted you during, like, just after the fight. I said, with a nickname like the Indian Chuck Norris, you've got a lot to live up to. But he did. He lived up to it perfectly, and it was dominant from the get go. He was always on top, and like he got that choke on, and it wasn't even like the ground and pound. They didn't look that damaging, but Craig's face was like a mess. Like his nose was bust open, and it was a statement win, and one that I expect someone with a nickname like the Indian Chuck Norris to do, because it was just dominant. It was very impressive.
Yeah, I was super impressed by him, and like you said earlier on when you were alluding to, you learn there's not really much you can learn about yourself in one of those 2-minute fights when you win in the first round. So you don't quite know exactly what he's about, but I'm looking forward to seeing him in the future if he's going to be putting on displays like that and choking people out in the first couple of minutes after dominating on the floor. So yeah, well done to Mickey Leifner. He looked phenomenal. On to the next one, which was one of my favorite submissions of the night, just due to the setup. It was Joe Chu versus Scott Sidwell, and it was another first round triangle. But this one was kind of like a flying setup. He jumped for it, and whilst he didn't jump into it and get it straight away, like kind of like a Paddy Pimlet style one, it was just a setup to be to that confidence to be able to think, yeah, I'm going to jump for this. Jumped, got him down, pulled him down, and got the triangle, and looked, like I said, looked amazing doing it. And Joe Chu's someone who I'm going to kind of watch with keen eyes moving forward.
Yeah, he was very impressive, and like I said, to land that knee and then the hook to drop Sidwell, and I think fair play to Sidwell though, because he had him in the choke for a while and he held on for quite a while. Like there's to be rocked like that, severely rocked as well. Like a knee is obviously you're not supposed to be landing that sort of thing in the amateurs, and it was an accident, but it is what it is. And I think to hold off in the triangle choke for as long as it did was very impressive, and I've got to give respect to him for that. Like I said, Joe Chu just looked unbelievable. Like, and it was one-sided from the very start, and he looked very impressive. And he's a name that will be someone I'm watching in the future, just to keep an eye on, because like I said, he stood out to me after it was a large show, and he is one of the names that stood out to me amongst many others. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he does.
Yeah, definitely, and hopefully I'll get to see him live soon and speak to him, because his distance managing was fantastic. His striking looked great. His aggression looked fantastic. And then to have the confidence, like I said, to jump for that triangle is something that's going to cause a lot of motions in the amateur scene of someone who's really comes to fight and put on exciting displays. So yeah, fantastic performance by Joe. Moving on to the three main fights, which I was super looking forward to, and the next fight was Elliot McGibbon versus Calvin Mooney. Calvin Mooney was going to fight at AFC 30 against a guy I know and a guy I'm friends with, Brandon Klein, but unfortunately I think he pulled out and he was unwell. A bit of back and forward between him and Brandon about why he pulled out the fight. I think Brandon was under the illusion that he pulled out the fight because he got the FCC gig and obviously wanted to fight on Fight Pass. And if he fought against Brandon and he got injured or anything, he wouldn't be able to fight on Fight Pass. So I understand. And this was a real fight of two halves. First round, Calvin looked great, fantastic strength and grappling. And then on the other side, Elliot came out with a bit of fire in his heart and thought, nah, this isn't the way it's going to go. And went for the relentless TKO finish.
Yeah, like you said, there's something quite satisfying to me when you see a man dominate the grappling exchanges the way Calvin Mooney did in that first round, and then to watch Elliot come out in the second, make the necessary adjustments, and just flip it on its head. And not only did he win, but he used Mooney's own game plan against him. He went to the grappling and he just took over and he just landed some unbelievable ground and pound. But I've always liked it when a fighter uses their opponent's own game plan against them, and that's how they win. Like, it's a real statement win. And to come back after what was probably a 10-8 round in the first round for Calvin Mooney, in my opinion, and just to see Elliott come out in that second and just flip the entire script on its head and take that game plan and reverse it and just win the way he did. It was so impressive. But also, I want to shout out just some of the grappling and the constant reversals throughout. It was so exciting to watch. Like, I love high level wrestling, and we got it in spades between these two. It was like neither was ever really willing to settle for any sort of position. They were just rolling all over, constantly reversing each other, and it was so good to watch.
Yeah, it was a super fun matchup for a round and a half, and these guys are two guys who are probably maybe meet again in the pro ranks because they're super dedicated. Elliott's super dedicated, and Calvin's really tough and dedicated to the sport, and real physically imposing characters who I think, like I said, they'll probably meet again in the pro ranks, and I'll be looking forward to seeing how their progression comes on. So yeah, well done to Elliott, and we'll keep an eye out for you. Moving on to the co-main event, the first title fight of two, Jamie Davies versus Afiz Oderinde. This was a super close fight. It was a unanimous decision in Jamie's favour, but I feel like it wasn't as clear cut as maybe people would have seen. Jamie did look fantastic, but Afiz had his moments and showed a lot of toughness and resilience to be able to keep walking through, because Jamie was kind of controlling a lot of the striking ranges, but Afiz looked great as well. But no, well done to Jamie, because Jamie looked fantastic. But I think he learned something about himself in that fight.
Yeah, first of all, shout out to Jamie Davis for having Heath Ledger's Joker tattooed on his back, which is quite fitting that we're recording this, talking about him now after we've just done the Dark Knight versus the Winter Soldier. But yeah, I think the first round, Jamie Davis looked incredible. His jab it was causing Oderinde serious problems, and it kept finding a home. But after that, I think the challenger really stepped up, and I think after 3 rounds, I'd probably say that Afiz was winning. And I think just to go out to be 2-1 down after 3 rounds, I think Jamie showed that real champion-like grit, and he really pulled out of the bag with those 2 final rounds. And that's what you got to do if you're a champion. That's the materials that make a good champion. Is you face that sort of adversity and you use those championship rounds to your advantage, and you come out strong at the end, and you really finish the fight on a high. And I think that's what Jamie did. So it was a close fight, but I do think Jamie winning was the right decision. I think it was 3-2 in the end. I think he really had an uphill battle to face after 3 rounds, but he did what any great champion does, and he just overcame those obstacles.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that he had that about him, and I also knew that he had really quick hands, but it looks like his hands got even quicker from the last time I've seen him fight. His hands are so quick, and he's super sharp and accurate and doesn't exert a lot of wasted energy. Everything's very efficient, and he really put on a great display. And this is something I feel like I don't think he's going to have a long amateur career. I feel like he's going to go pro pretty soon, because with his speed and accuracy, those 4-ounce gloves are only going to make his hands faster. It's only going to make him more powerful. So we'll see a lot from Jamie. But like I said, shout out to Fees. He's got a lot about him. There's a reason he's in that title opportunity position. So we'll hopefully see these guys go their separate ways, but both carry on making noise in the sport.
Yeah, I hope so. Like, I think MMA truly is a game of inches, and I think it was Jamie's speed that was just out of Afiz's reach, and I think that's what really helped him tidy over, because, like you said, at the start, his striking was on point, and he looked great, and then as the rounds crept up, Afiz really took over. But those last 2 rounds, I think Jamie's speed really held out, and he just looked incredible, and I think he did what he needed to do, and he made a statement, and I think neither guy should be disappointed with that performance. And I think both guys have got bright futures. So while Afiz didn't win, he should hold his head up high, because that was a real tough fight, and he more than held his own.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, fantastic fight for those guys, and congratulations to Jamie. Moving on to the main event, which was just an unbelievable display of what level these amateur fighters are at. Joe Fields is the second ranked amateur flyweight in the UK and Ireland, and Conor Walsh is a madman and a super tough, charismatic guy. And these two look like a fight that wouldn't be out of place on a UFC undercard. These guys looked fantastic, and it was a brilliant performance, back and forward. And this could have gone either way. I was unsure about who would win it. I think maybe the later rounds kind of sealed it. But yeah, Conor Walsh versus Joe Fields is a fight that's going to live long in my memory.
Yeah, it was the perfect way to cap off the show, I think, because you've got two guys that are so evenly matched and are just both really, really, really good. And it could have ended really early, actually, because Conor Walsh landed that hook early on, and Joe Fields showed some unbelievable recovery just to avoid the finish there and just to bring himself back in. Because after that, I think it's fair to say he took over that first round. And I think even maybe after two rounds, I think there was a case for me that Conor was down too, and he really needed to turn it up in those final three rounds. And that's exactly what he did. I think as the fight went on, he looked better and better. And that's like I said it earlier about Jamie Davis. I think Conor had that championship medal, and he showed it as the fight progressed into those championship rounds, and he really dug deep and he brought it out. But it was just an unbelievable fight. Both guys were fantastic. The ending where Conor was just like, let's stand and bang. He was shouting. It was very similar to what Max Holloway did with Ricardo Lamas all those years ago. It was such a spectacle to watch, and just to see those two guys end the show on such a high, it was the perfect way to cap off a really good night, I think.
Yeah, I think he spat his mouthpiece out and said, "This is a fucking fight." And
That's what you want from a champion. That's what you want.
yeah, someone who's like, because in those moments, if he maybe fought, because I think it was 2-2 going into the final round and he needed that round and he looked fantastic in that last round. So he could have easily just stepped back, walked off and kind of evaded for the last 10 seconds to make sure that he was going to get the decision victory. And to have that metal to be like, nah, I want to put on a show here and I want to see if I can knock this guy out and putting it all on the risk, because he could have got knocked out in that situation and he'd have looked silly for doing that if he had done, because he was the one that initiated that wild exchange at the end. But that's just absolutely incredible and a perfect way to end out what was one of the best cards that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, like you said there, it's either incredible self-belief or quite incredible foolishness to just be willing to stand there and bang when you are probably up, and everyone knows it. It could have backfired so badly, but it didn't. He was tough. He was incredible. Both guys were. I think the sight of both guys sat on the cage side afterwards, like together with everyone celebrating behind them. It was such a good image, and it was really good for the show. I think a lot of people were talking about this fight afterwards. It a lot of times the main event, it doesn't quite live up to the card that was built before it. But it took everything that had worked on the card and it just managed to cap it off in the most exhilarating way. And I don't think there could have been a better main event.
No, me neither. And I think both of these guys, they're going to go pro very soon, because I don't really think there's much left for them to prove now in the amateur scene. I think they're both ready to go pro. They'll both hold their own in the pro ranks. So yeah, super excited to see what these guys are going to do now going forward. This is kind of, I love watching cards at home because I can watch it in my own rate, but I love being there because I get to interview these guys after and I get to find out what they're thinking and where they want to go and if they want to turn pro. So I'm gonna have to speak to a lot of these guys and see what their plans are coming up next. But overall, amazing card, super great to watch, and I'm really really on the board of FCC now. Even if I wasn't already, I'm super excited to see where this promotion's going to go.
Yeah, they did. They really did a great account for themselves with some of those fights. Some of the guys that they had on, there was no dull contest. A lot of the times on an MMA card, you get at least one or two snubs, some like really dull fights that really don't leave a lasting impression. But I don't feel like there was any here. Like everyone brought their A game. I don't know if it's because, like you said, it's on Fight Pass. Everyone knows there's a lot of eyes on them, so there's that extra motivation. I'm not sure if that's what it is or not, but it was incredible. There were some really high quality fights. Like the championship fights all delivered, and I think especially those last two, it could have gone either way, and I'd have been fine. There were no questionable decisions, which is always nice because that's very rare in MMA these days. But I think the judges got it right whenever they were called upon, which wasn't often. But I think they got it right every time. There were no robberies. There were just some incredible fights, and I have come away from FCC really impressed, and we'll be certainly checking them out again.
Yeah, to come from that card where the judging was great, The officiating was fantastic. Like I said, Paul Crosley is one of my favorite referees on the regional scene. He's brilliant, and he just kind of encapsulates what you want in a referee. To go from that into the UFC card that was after it, there was so many weird decisions. There was so many refereeing errors. If these cards like FCC, obviously they're on the regional scene, if they can do it, I don't understand why the UFC can't just get it right. But I'm not here to talk about the UFC. I'm here to talk about what a great job FCC did. So yeah, well done, guys. But
not here to talk about the UFC, says while wearing a UFC t-shirt.
Yeah, and start with the UFC in the background as well.
You're a fraud.
I am a fraud. I know. I pretend to be out about the regional scene. Moving on to the MMA Mindset Awards, and I know everyone wants to hear what we've got to say, and they all want to be on these awards, but only 4 people can get it, and that's 2 in the fight of the night, 1 in the submission, and 1 in the KO of the night. I'll go into the ones that I think we agree on, and just what we've been speaking about there. Fight of the night, Conor Walsh, Joe Fields kind of stole the show.
I don't think there's any debate really. Like I said earlier, there were a couple of fights that really were in with a shout. Like I think the opening fight and the Harry Davis upset, those two, especially I think I had the Harry Davis one all the way through. There were some incredible fights, but I had that one mostly for the upset narrative and the way it played out in that first round. And that was my pick until that main event when those two guys just delivered. Like they just gave it all. There was some incredible grappling, some incredible striking. It was close. It went all 5 rounds, and it was a championship fight. It was the perfect championship fight. And yeah, I don't think there's any competition at that point. Like I said, some great fights, but that really just pulled away right at the end, I think.
Yeah, and well done to Conor Walsh and Joe Fields for that, and thank you for putting on that performance, because it kind of made my night. Moving on to another one that I think we've both got the same, was the KO of the night, and couldn't really go to anyone else. I mean, we had Curtis Campbell with that body kick. That was a beautiful body kick, but in terms of shutting the lights out with a perfectly timed head kick, Sonny O'Neill kind of takes this one, and I don't think many people will disagree with that.
No, and I think when you factor in the danger Sonny was in just beforehand, it also adds just to the quality of the finish. I think to be rocked the way he was, and then to recover that quickly and just land a head kick of that nature, it was you very rarely see anything like that. Never mind on a regional card, like you don't see that in the UFC. So it was no brainer. I think Sonny just delivered in the best way, and I think there's no other KO came close in my opinion.
No, definitely not. So yeah, well done, Sonny, and keep that up, and you're gonna have a lot of eyes on you. And then one that I think initially we disagreed on was the submission of the night, but I've kind of given it some thought today and last night, and I had Joe Chu originally for the setup of the triangle, for what happened before with the strikes. I kind of had that in my mind that was going to be my submission of the night, and I was going to sit here and argue the toss with you. But then you've obviously come in, and we were talking last night briefly, and you had a completely different triangle choke on the board. And if you just like to kind of go into that, and then I'll tell you why I've decided to change my mind and agree with you.
It's because I'm a very convincing man. No, I don't know if it's because I'm a sentimental guy, but the narrative always plays into it for me. And I think Josh Dean coming in at 1-5 and then managing to pull out that submission, the triangle choke, whilst battling through an injury to a body part he needed in that moment. And then just to see him afterwards where he could barely even stand, I think it just showed incredible toughness. And I think that is what pushes it ahead of everything else for me. There were some incredible submissions, but I think, again, like the Sonny knockout, I think the narrative around it where he had to deal with an injury and the pre-fight coming in at 1-5, like it all adds up for me. And I think that's what makes the submission that much more special. So I went with Josh Dean's triangle choke.
Yeah, and I thought about it last night, and I agree with you there with the 1-5 coming in and still having that heart and belief, and that must have been a great moment for him, because I don't know what was going through his head going into that fight. If he was thinking, oh, if I don't get it here, I might call it a day and move on to something else. But yeah, I was really buzzing for him. So I'm more than happy, and he deserves the props. And I know I know I take the piss and say these are like the most prestigious awards in MMA, but I think when he receives the graphic and stuff, and I've tagged him in it, and I think he'll be pretty buzzing as well. So no, I'm super happy to be able to super happy to be able to give it to Josh Dean, and like I said, well done, mate. You really deserved it. But yeah, go on.
I think the thing is as well is a triangle choke's not easy to get on the best of days, but to do it through an injury is so impressive. And I think that has to be recognised for me. And that was a large reason why I decided to go with him in the end. And I'm glad you decided to agree because I think he deserves it.
Yeah, he really does, and yeah, I think it's a testament to his heart and his determination to be able to turn around the 1-5, get it back to 2-5, and hopefully push on. But yeah, that was the card. Unbelievable card. So many finishes, so many talking points, so much to delve into. Everyone who hasn't gone and seen it, go watch it. Wait for the fights to be uploaded. Make sure you watch these fights, especially the title fights, which were absolutely incredible. And props to FCC. And hopefully, like I said, we get the next card out soon, and we can watch that again and do another regional roundup. But no, I've had a great time, Carl. Thank you very much for coming on and discussing this card with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. Like, for a large part of our friendship, we've always been fight fans, and we've spent countless hours discussing MMA fights. So it's always fun to do, and I appreciate being asked to come on. Again, like I said, I've watched every episode of the show so far, and I'm loving it. So it's been an honor to come on. So thank you for having me, and hopefully somewhere down the line I'll be on again, and I'll get you back on mine, and we can just mix and match like that.
Yeah, definitely. Just before we go, just let people know like where they can find yourself and your podcast.
So you can find me on Twitter at Callum Altimas, which is Altimas. A lot of people have a nightmare trying to spell my last name. It's ridiculous. But you can find my written work on websites such as Agents of Fandom, where I write about movies and TV and things like that, because I'm a big movie fan, which is why I started the Cinematch podcast. I'm also on websites like Vavel.com, where I write about football, but primarily Blackburn Rovers. I've started writing about a variety of different sports for Give Me Sport recently, where this week alone I've had WWE articles, I've had football articles, tennis, NBA, all sorts like that. But primarily now you'll be able to find my new podcast, the Cinematch Podcast, on YouTube at the Cinematch Podcast, as well as on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Similarly, the Cinematch Podcast, you can find it all on there. My very first episode will release today once I get over some ridiculous technical issues, which will feature Mr. Chris Simpson himself as we discuss The Dark Knight versus Captain America: The Winter Soldier. So yeah, it's exciting, and you can find me everywhere really. But yeah, thanks for having me, and it's been fun.
Yeah, not a problem. Real fun. So just like I was saying before, go check out Charles Joyner's interview from yesterday. Go check out Aaron Gibbons, because I had a great time with Aaron as well earlier on in the week. And then Wednesday is going to come, and don't miss this episode with James Dixon, because there was some ridiculous moments in there that I'll let you kind of see. But no, thank you very much for watching, guys, and yeah, we'll see you again next week.
Peace out.